Welcome to the Cash Flow Academy podcast. I'm your host, Andy Tanner. Great show on deck for you today. We're going to really talk about one of the most important things related to investing, and that's how to do it without stressing out. I know so many people that they fail to keep up with their money in terms of their happiness. So we've got a great guest. I'll give you a little background on Cary Jack here in a bit. But remember, like, subscribe, hit your notification, and drop by yourinvestingclass.com for more goodies and financial education. Let's dive right in. So I met so first of all, Cary Jack is with us, and welcome to the program. Thanks for taking some time.
Hey man, honored to be here, Andy. Thank you for having me.
So it was interesting how Cary and I met. Is I was actually hooked up with Cary to be on his podcast. And every once in a while, someone will ask me to be a guest. And I liked our conversation so much that I thought, man, I think our listeners would love to get to know him and hear what he has to say. And so I called my producers to see if we can book him on our show. And because I liked the vibe when we had a chance to talk. So and also I always I tend to speak from my own strugglings a lot. The stuff that I'm trying to work on in my life, I'll go out and try to find people that I can learn from. So this is something that's important to me, my kids. Talk a little bit about his book, The Happy Hustle, version 2.0, 10 alignments to avoid burnout and achieve blissful balance. And so that'll be cool. Cary, a little bit about yourself and why you decided to write your book and kind of the beginning to the present.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I wasn't a happy hustler. I was actually just hustling and I burnt out as a tech entrepreneur, if you can believe it, in New York City, grinding like a dog, 100 plus hour weeks,
Yep.
getting roughly 5 hours of sleep, all for profit, success, ego, status, a lot of the things. Oh, that's my little 1-year-old back here. He's joining us in the pod studio today as I'm on daddy duty. So real happy hustling in the moment. If you're watching on YouTube, you see my background shift. But
We're
anyway,
good.
yeah. But the thing that really hit me was I was on the path to this grandiose exit and, a lot of this quote unquote success with my tech company, but I wasn't happy. And I was sacrificing my faith, my family, my fitness, my fun, all the F words, uh, for basically money and power, right? As a tech founder, you get caught up in this allure, and that's what happened to me. I ended up getting a 7-figure VC funding deal and partnerships with Microsoft and IBM on the table, and a bunch of stuff that set us up for this big exit. And Andy, I just was so unhappy. I was so unfulfilled. So I made a massive pivot. I folded our tech company. I moved to Bangkok, Thailand for about a year, actually. I lived over there. And that's where I really put the happy in my own hustle. I started to kind of just scratch my own itch. I said, okay, what are the key areas of life that I really want to put intentionality behind? And that's where the Happy Hustle was born. And fast forward now, we have best-selling book, top globally rated podcast, which you rocked the mic on, and it was absolutely epic episode. So I highly recommend checking that one out. And we have a mastermind community. We have events. We take guys in the Montana backcountry wilderness. I live in Montana, so we get these guys completely disconnected from society and reconnected to themselves and nature. And it's all centered around basically putting the happy in your hustle and creating this personal and professional life balance. So that's what I'm all about.
It's a great story, and it's funny. Montana, I had a pretty good friend of mine who played in the NBA for a lot. I'm for those who don't know, I'm kind of a big guy. I'm about six
You
eight, and I
are.
played a lot of basketball. And I've got a few buddies that actually went a little further than I did. They made it in the NBA. And one of my buddies, all the money in the world, over a decade in the NBA, and he packed up, moved to Montana. So maybe that's the key. It's funny. He says, "Hey Andy, watch this documentary," and it was on a farm, on this guy that made this farm. And I watched. I'm like, "Oh, that's nice, nice farm." And he calls me back and says, "Did you watch it?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm doing it." I go, what? He goes, I just bought a ranch, and he's been up there a few years now. And I talk to him once in a while, and he says, "Man, I always knew that basketball was a nice career, but now I found what I really want to do, which is taking care of my hogs and fixing fences and on my tractor." And happiness is a big deal, Cary. I'm fortunate to run in a lot of different circles. I have a lot of friends that are struggling, that I know, family members that struggle with money, but I also have people that got $1 billion that I'll hang around with. And it's really interesting as I look at some of them who are happy. I find poor people who are really happy and unhappy. I find rich people who are really happy and unhappy. And one of the things that came up that I'd like you to talk about, um, last time, why is it particularly now a little more stressful and a little tougher than it seems like? My wife and I, we were the other night, as you're ready to fall asleep, you just chat. Sometimes you stay up too late just chatting. And she says, when we grew up, life seemed slower. And both of us, especially her, she's from a small town. She goes, we used to sit on the porch and snip peas and talk, or we'd sit around and can stuff, and or just watch the fire and visit. And we don't do that stuff as much anymore. Can you talk? Is that just me getting older, or is the world moving a little too fast?
I think it's technology, man, inundating our everyday reality, and it's causing a massive disconnect. And I'm not perfect. I never claim to be the guru in any of this stuff. I'm just the reporter of, hey, what's working and what's not. And, I know for my wife and I, when we put our phones in the other room, we have a rule, but sometimes it gets broken, I will say. But keep our phones in the other room, not in our bedroom, and we don't have a TV in our bedroom. Then that's when it opens up for connection. And right now, with AI and all these technological innovations, you're right. The world is moving so fast. And I think people crave more now than ever this one-on-one human to human connection. So it opens up an opportunity for, I think, for live events. If you do want to invest in your business and really take that leap into live events, I think that's going to be a huge opportunity to come. But I also do think it's a slippery slope with all this VR and AR and where we're headed.
Yeah, there's a little bit of anxiety. I even feel it myself. I think it's funny how when you get a podcast or you get a book that does well, you get invited to do a lot of speeches. I probably even, 5,000 speeches in my life. People think that because you're the guy with the microphone or that you're the guy on stage, that you don't have any chinks in your armor, that you don't have days where you're just ready to pull your hair out, or you don't have any weaknesses. And I would just tell people that if you haven't got into entrepreneurship yet, it's more stressful than just if you think the 9 to 5 grind is
Yeah.
stressful, and it is, depending on what you do, I suppose. But there's a reason most people don't dive into investing in entrepreneurship, because what it'll do is it will find your weaknesses so fast and it will put them on display for the whole world to
It's so
see.
true. Yeah.
And the reason I really wanted Cary to visit us on the podcast is because when you decide you want to give more value to the world via investing or via entrepreneurship, you've actually, know it or not, you've embarked on a journey of personal development. Would you talk about that a little bit about, because it sounds to me you're in New York City and you're saying, look, I want to make some money and I want to give value to the world. You can't make money without giving value to the world
Right.
very often,
Right.
but all of a sudden you're not happy. And can you talk a little bit about the chinks in the armor and the idea that when you start to, whatever your hustle is, it's going to be about a journey of personal development.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's really it's really difficult to put into words the entrepreneurial journey, until you get in the trenches and you experience what it's like. You don't know until you're in the arena. And I think every day is a new adventure in both positive and negative lights. You got fires to put out with your team, and then you have new customers that come in that are it's a huge win. It's like this roller coaster. But if you're not growing and evolving every day, I believe you're shrinking and dissolving. So I subscribe to this 90-minute routine. I call it the 30-30-30 system for guaranteed growth. And I read 30 minutes in the morning. I listen 30 minutes in the afternoon, and then I watch something inspirational, educational in the evening. And it hits the brain centers differently with these different forms of content. And it's all, again, inspirational and educational content related to my goals and, me developing as a human. And I think that one discipline, that routine has exponentially fast tracked my personal development and growth. I also, just on this note of personal development, I do think with business now more than ever, it's very important to invest in your personal brand. So not just your own personal development, but like you need to think, how can I expedite trust one to many? And again, people want to know who's behind your company, who's behind the podcast, what's Andy up to, on a Saturday with his family. Not saying you got to post about your salad and what you didn't had for, whatever breakfast. Like not like it's not all you don't have to put it all out there, but people do want to know the man behind the business or the woman behind the show or whatever it is. So I think now more than ever, we really need to focus on building trust with our audience by being authentic and vulnerable and sharing our personal brand journey throughout. I got to shout out Brand Builders Group, friends of mine, Rory and AJ Vaden. They started this amazing company that helps you build, grow, and monetize your personal brand. That's what I went through. So I have the Happy Hustle as my company, and then I have Cary Jack as my personal brand. And I look at it as like an umbrella. So I invested in my personal brand. Cary Jack is the umbrella. Underneath it, a spoke of it is the Happy Hustle. I also have a couple other entities. One, in the eco space, fighting plastic pollution epidemic, called Eco Breakthroughs. Another spoke is my entertainment career, just being a low-key professional actor slash model in some commercial spaces, and just a couple different entities. I think it's important to structure it in that way, and that's just another form of personal development, investing in your personal brand as well.
So there's a, as I listen to you about the idea of your corporate brand and your personal brand, um, there's, from an investing standpoint, one of the words we use a lot is policy. And you have fiscal policy, which is a government policy. You have monetary policy, which is a government policy. You have corporate policies. So in my company, we have just certain things we do. But I'll tell you, when it comes to personal brand, you also have personal policy. And a lot of people will want to escape those types of policies. A guy goes to work and he has all the corporate policy all day long. He wants to come home and just kind of relax and not have rules. And just as I listened to you, and it kind of went through that filter. Okay, here's a policy. We don't have phones in our bedroom. That's a rule. That's a personal policy. It's funny, when my wife and I got married, that's really interesting. Birds of a feather flock together. We said we don't want to have a TV in our bedroom because we're going to dedicate this space to other types of stuff. Sleeping, intimacy, reading, stuff like that. There's another policy. Go on. I have a policy of 30 minutes of reading every single day. I have a policy of 30 minutes of watching and learning every single day. And I will just say that's a very calming key you've given us to happy. And I'll tell you why I think that's interesting, Cary, is right now we're in the middle of the election stuff, a lot of brouhaha. And we're recording this just moments before the election. So, after it's put out, we'll see what kind of
Yeah.
hubbub guaranteed will have happened, some type of hubbub. And it is so interesting, Cary, because they frame this, both parties, they frame this as if your vote is going to determine your happiness. That, in other words, if you don't get the right person in there, things are going to just be awful and terrible, and it's life and death, and everything's going to disintegrate in your life. Where a lot of people might pause and say, there is no. I say this a lot. there is absolutely no government policy that has enough horsepower to compensate for a poor personal policy. And there is absolutely no government policy that is so bad that it can keep down a good personal policy. So when you talk about personal brand, I thought it was so interesting as I listened to um, your regimen. So talk, and by the way, Cary before the show, he says, "Hey, do you care if I have my 1 year old?" I says, "Heavens no, man," because my role and my policy is I'm father and husband number one. So he's absolutely welcome.
He's getting some avocado as we speak.
There you go. So talk a little bit about that. Are there any other policies? In fact, let's do this. Let's do a break. And when we come back, let's talk more about these 10 alignments that you
Yeah.
have that can help me be happy in my hustle. We'll be back in just a moment.
Responsive to questions, they're very detailed in their training. You can start from no investing experience whatsoever and get educated and be able to make a nice retirement for yourself or even a living. It's an amazing educational system, and I would highly recommend it. The one thing that will get you more confident in investing is your education, your competency, and if you can get to that point, you can do anything.
Welcome back to the Cashflow Academy podcast. I'm here with my new friend, Cary Jack. His book we've been discussing is The Happy Hustle version 2.0, 10 alignments to avoid burnout and achieve blissful balance. So one of the comments that I make to my kids a lot, I say, always be bigger than your money, always be bigger than what you're doing. And as your money grows, that forces you to grow. If you're compounding and you're experiencing exponential growth in your pocketbook, you have to have exponential growth in your personal development to stay bigger. And people don't believe me, and they I don't know if they believe you. So I'm going to have you pitch them on this.
Okay.
When people are going to turn into the Cashflow Academy podcast, and we talk about fiscal policies and earnings and fundamental analysis and all kinds of money type of stuff.
Yeah.
And really, I will tell you that conversations like this in the personal development is really where it begins. There's a mindset,
Right.
There's a mindset to wealth and entrepreneurship. So convince everyone that they should listen to guys like us when we get away from the numbers and we get away from trends, and we actually talk about working on ourselves. Why should they invest time to read the Happy Hustle? Why is it worth it?
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with our own knowledge, right? And then the execution and implementation of that knowledge. For me personally, I can just speak to my journey. I realized there's more to life than just money early on, after going through, I've always been an entrepreneur, never a corporate grinder. So I unfortunately or fortunately can't relate to that whole workforce. But having had money and then having not had money and then seeing people, like you said, billionaires who are unhappy or, millionaires who kill themselves, it's like money does not produce sustained happiness. Keyword sustained, right? It could be fleeting happiness. You buy a new Ferrari, maybe you're super pumped for a bit and then it fades. But I realize there's more to life, and there's these 10 different areas of life. And that's really what I focus on now. And we call it the soul mapping system, your soul's map to the blissfully balanced promised land. Because I honestly, in my heart, believe, Andy, balance equals happiness. So I just look at my life in these 10 different areas, and then what you measure, you can manage, that old adage. So I now measure myself in these 10 key areas, typically on Sunday evenings from the week prior. And it's a 1 to 5 scale, very simple. A is like you're crushing it, like a 5. 5 equals an A. 1 is an F. It wasn't much for school, but I do know the grading scale, so I just related it to that, right? So that is essentially just this very simple rubric, these very simple 10 areas of life, not rocket science, but man, it has transformed my life and thousands of others who go through this process. And, it really is simply about just keeping track of where you are in and out of alignment. So if you're feeling froggy, I'll put you through the assessment. We could do it in less than like probably 2 minutes, give or take 2 to 5. And everyone listening on the air, we could actually have them join us if you'd like.
I'm not afraid of being vulnerable. When we'll look at these A through Fs, and there's I fail in things so many times that I'm not intimidated by it. I'm used to it. Before we hop into this quick exercise, though, it's kind of the way I think, and I hope the listeners might have caught the same thing. There's another policy, and it's
Yeah.
so crazy how birds of a feather flock together, because every Sunday at 11 a.m., which seems to be the most quiet time for us. There's not a lot of phone calls coming in then, and the kids are pretty much self-contained and doing whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we have a weekly meeting where we have a regimen that we go through, and there's boxes that we check from the past. There's goals that we talk about in the future, and then a schedule that we outline. And that schedule
Yeah.
has a bit of a balance to it, because we talk about our money, but we also talk about the goals our children have discussed with us, and we talk about our personal stuff to make sure. So I'm curious to see how I'll do on this, because
Yeah.
putting 10 check marks by anything in my life, it's going to be a tough one. So let's hop in, but I wanted people to notice the policy that you have, this
Yeah.
personal policy that translates into this stuff, where you take time on yourself. That it's not just rules from the government give you, not
Yeah.
just rules that the corporation you work for gives you, or that you've started, but the rules of your own life, your personal policies are a big deal here. So fire away. Let's
Amen.
go through the exercise and see if I can
Okay.
get a GPA that's better than what I had academically.
Yeah, right. Me too. Well, and again, I just want you to think about the last 30 days. So everyone out there listening, I urge you to become not just a passive listener, but an active participant. And this will be really
Do it.
telling of where you're at in your life at this current moment from the last 30 days. So we'll
Okay,
start
let's
with
do it.
selfless service, which is the S in the soul mapping system. So I believe, like Tony Robbins says, like the secret to living is giving. We have this whole acronym. It's very meta. It's an acronym within an acronym. So we got selfless service, which is a part of the soul mapping system.
Yep.
Inside it, we do give our insight, finances, and time. So GIFT is the acronym that we focus on just to raise our score. And inside the
Okay.
book, we have ways that you can actually raise your score. But I just want you to think about in the last 30 days, how would you rank yourself? 1 to 5. 5 is you've been volunteering, you've been giving your money, your time, your expertise. And again, this isn't like to your clients, oh, I gave a little
Right.
extra, because that has
Right. Right.
this,
That's
different.
monetary.
Yeah, that's a different alignment. So just give yourself a score, and we'll come back at the end and get
Okay.
all of your scores. And it might be helpful to write it down, but 1 to 5, put it in there, and then we're going to tally them up at the end. So if you have a pen or paper, if you want to,
I don't have my pen and paper, but
okay, you can just
we'll
remember.
hang on. No, I'll tell you what to do. I'll open up a little window
Oh, there you go.
right here, and I'm going to put this down here, and I'm going to say SS for selfless service, and I just put in my score. All right, there we go.
There you go. Okay. Now, the second alignment, optimized health, right? Optimized health, if you don't have your health, being a former, a very high level athlete, how important it is to have your health to perform on game day.
Okay.
So you got to think about where you rank right now, 1 to 5. 5's you're crushing it. It's an A in the last 30 days. Working out a lot, being very diligent with your diet. 1, not so much. Okay. So give yourself a score
Yep.
for optimized health.
Got it.
You unplugged digitally. This is a very tough one, because we use our tech for our businesses, but are we low-key addicted maybe? Or do we get caught in the death scroll on social media? Are we watching streaming shows, constantly binging Netflix? Like we have to disconnect in order to really become happy hustlers. So give yourself a score in the last 30 days. 5 is you're being very diligent, you're creating barriers. 1 is not so much, you're failing, right?
Got it.
Okay. Then the L is loving relationships. So loving relationships is what it's all about, right? And if you don't have love in your life, you're not happy hustling. And this is not just your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, girlfriend, your intimate relationship, but also one circle beyond, your inner circle and your family. Think about that. How much love
Yep.
do you have in the last 30 days? Is it bare angst and despair, or is there plentiful pleasure and, lots of joy? So that's the soul part. Okay. So we should have four
Got it.
scores now. Everyone out there
I
listening should have
got
four scores.
I got 4 in there.
Okay, awesome. All right. Now the mapping part. So M stands for mindful spirituality. And again, I don't care one religion or another. I just think it's important to have faith in something bigger than yourself. So give yourself a score. How connected to a higher power do you feel right now in the last 30 days? Are you meditating? Are you praying? Are you doing gratitude practices? Or maybe not so much, right?
Okay.
Then the A, abundance financially. See, this is in here. Money and, abundance financially is a part of being a happy hustler. However, people oftentimes put too much importance on just money and they forget these other alignments, right? So give yourself a score. In the last 30 days, are you growing, your wealth? Are you saving, investing, spending wisely? Or, maybe you're living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe it's been tough.
Yeah.
So give yourself a score. All right.
Okay.
P, personal development. There you go. We're talking about it earlier, but again, are you growing and evolving, or are you shrinking and dissolving? Put a score down for the last 30 days in terms of your personal development. The next P, which I find a lot of high performers lacking, is passionate hobbies. So passionate hobbies means doing actually fun things for yourself. That means maybe you're going to play basketball with the guys, or you're going to do an art class, or you're dancing, on Wednesdays salsa with your spouse, or whatever it is, right? You got to have fun. And I think a lot of high performers miss this one, right? They're always giving to their clients and their businesses and their families, and then not so much themselves. And then I is impactful work. So impactful work, how aligned do you feel with what you're doing for work? Are you, infusing your passion, which I know these are cliche buzzwords, but I'll define them. Passion, I look at it as like this inward calling on your heartstrings. And then purpose is like that outward serving mission for like who you're actually, helping, and then to make a positive impact. These 3 pillars are what we really deem impactful work. So rank yourself 1 to 5 in the last 30 days of how aligned you feel with your work. And then N is nature connection. Okay. So nature connection means getting outside, connecting with the higher power, in nature's glory, maybe leaving your devices, going for a walk, going camping, whatever it is. But really, also, I like to throw in here being a conscious consumer, not just, buying plastic water bottles and like polluting our earth.
Is conscious consumer, that's different than nature connection, right?
Yeah,
That's
nature
another?
connection's
Okay.
the actual alignment. But in order to protect our planet and to connect with nature, we need to protect it. So I'm a big eco warrior, and I'd like to, always bring this into the mix and have people just think about how sustainable their lives are. So give yourself a score on that one. 1 to 5 again. 5's you're crushing it. 1 is you're failing. So right now, everyone should have 10 scores, 1 to 5 in 10 different areas. And I'd like, if it's cool, I'd like you to add yours up, Andy. And
100%. Oh, I might have missed some though, because I was following that. Some of them might have run together. So let me go through these real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the first one, remind me what the first one was. That
selfless
is
service.
my selfless service. Gave myself a 4.
Nice.
So
love it. Okay.
Didn't quite get the 5 on that one, but I gave myself a 4. Okay. Number 2 was,
you're hard on yourself, I'm sure too.
Well, okay. Number 2 is what?
Optimized health.
That one I didn't do too well on, man. And I probably did better than I do some months. I gave myself a 2. So, and that's only because that's the last 30 days. If we'd have done the last 60, I might have got the 1.5. So that's one. There was one that's I figured that'd probably be on the list somewhere, and I knew I know that's one that I struggle with a lot.
Okay.
But I actually have 2 1s that I did not expect. So if I thought I was doing poorly, I would have said that's the worst one. But I gave myself a 2. Okay. Next one. This is fun, by the way. This is fun stuff. Okay.
So then the next one is you unplugged digitally. Where'd you rank?
Give myself a 3. We unplugged a bit. Not as unplugged as I'd like to be. But my wife, she has a policy that she enforces that she also has a space when we spend a lot of time together in the car. When we go somewhere as a family, phones are off in the car, stuff like that. Nice. So we have some rules that way.
Good.
Obviously at dinner, everyone's unplugged, stuff like that. So,
Nice. Nice.
so unplugging pretty good.
Good policies. I love it. All right. So loving relationships is the next one.
Man, got my first five on that, man.
Let's go,
And
baby.
I don't have very many talents. I tell people I have talents. I can screw in a light bulb for you. I can put your star on your tree for you, and I can make stuff simple for investing. I have one other talent. Um, I had a friend of mine comment on this. He says, Andy, you have a loyalty chain to those you're close to, and I put a high premium on loving relationships. And if
That's awesome.
if I could say I've done one thing that I'm proud of, if I can have a little bit of pride without being prideful,
Yeah.
I really enjoy the relationship I have with my sweetheart for 30 years, and my sons. The people wouldn't believe me, but we get along pretty well as a family. So we got great
That's
relationships.
huge.
So I got my first five there. So, but I care about it and I work on it a lot. So there you go.
And I don't want to just blow past that, because that is huge to have a marriage that goes 30 years. First of all, clap it up for Andy, guys, because this is huge.
Let's be honest. She doesn't know what an exit strategy is. We haven't taught her that part of investing, or we'd have been toast a long time ago. But,
yeah, right.
we've done okay that way. So, all right.
It's all right. So then the next one is mindful spirituality. So where'd you rank on that?
Gave myself a 3. The thing I enjoy, I really enjoy, and I'm getting better at it, is I've been practicing actually mindfulness meditation, just tuning off on the breath, shutting everything out, just kind of letting my brain rest and being mindful. So that's pretty good. I'm not my parents they found that stuff in religion. And I was raised in a super, super, like 10 out of 10 religious family, which means that my parents are just great people and they're selfless. And much of what I have, I owe to them in terms of the priorities you have on honesty and ethics and love and family and father. They built me for that. In my personality, as I've grown into an adult, I'm not a guy you're going to find in the pew that way. But I put a high premium on goodness, and
love that.
I think it's really important. So
Yeah,
I gave myself a 3 on that. I could do better on that, but I'm not bankrupt, so I got a 3.
Gotcha. All right, next one is abundance financially.
Boy, I had a pretty good month. Got to give myself a 5
Let's go
on that one. So
I love it.
I was pretty happy with how. When I look at my asset column, I look at, have we done real estate wise? How have we done stock wise? How have we done business wise? And we've had some good batting average in all 3 of those areas. So we're pretty happy with those. So
heck yeah,
I got
love
2.
it.
I only have 2 5s so far, but we got 2, I guess.
Hey, that's all right. It's better than no 5s. All right,
Yep.
Personal development is the next one.
Gave myself a 4.
Nice.
Not as perfect as I want to be on that, but I do engage in a lot of learning. I think the reason I don't get a 5 is part of personal development. I link in the health thing, but I care very much about learning. I care much about getting up when I get knocked down and working on my discipline and doing pretty well there.
Awesome.
For the last 30 days.
Yeah, right. The next one is passionate hobbies.
Oh my gosh, hit me right in the gut with this one, Cary.
Okay.
I did not see this coming. And you actually called this when you said some guys that run their business or are pretty active don't do this one. Yeah. If there'd have been a 0, I'd had to pick it. I can't think of a thing, not one in the last 30 days where I did something like I can't think
Andy. Damn. We got to fix that, man.
I'll tell you what. I have hobbies, but I didn't engage in any type of hobby that I can think about. Maybe I could get that 1.1. I did a little bit of writing. which is kind of a hobby of mine. So maybe I can find a little bit of writing, but that's about it. So
Yeah,
didn't think that'd be on the list and cut me the quick. So there's something I can work on.
there you go, man. Impactful work is the next one. Where'd
Five.
you rank?
Yeah. Yeah. Five. We've made an impact and
Heck yeah.
very proud of the work we did. So I got, what was that? Only two fives, but that's one. So that's good.
There you go. And then the
Or
final
three
one is
fives.
nature
Three fives.
connection. That's 3 5s. Yep. Nature
Yeah.
connection is the final.
Got a one on that. A lot of time in the studio, a lot of time teaching, a lot of time indoors. Got to get me I got to get my hiking boots out and maybe go for a hike. This is really a bad one because much like Montana, I live in a beautiful state. And the fall colors, generally as a family, we at least get out once or twice, if not more, and we'll go up the mountains and just soak in those beautiful fall colors. Did not do that this October. Missed it. So did not do that this time. So
Well,
family
you got to
tradition,
come
we didn't get
camping in
done.
Montana with me one of these times.
Tell you what, man, nature connection, only got a one on that. So a couple of
Yeah.
ones.
Well, there you go. So now I want everyone to, and thank you, man, for being so vulnerable and honest. This is like very awesome and brave of you to do it live on the air. I know we didn't plan this, so I just want to shout you out for doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now what we do is we add up the 10 scores. So if you're 40 or above, you're technically happy hustling that last month. If you're
Oh,
39
man, I
or
might not
below,
have made it.
if you're
Okay,
39 or
let's
below,
see.
then unfortunately we got a little work to do. So
Now
where'd you
you're
rank?
now you're gonna make me add in front of people on a podcast without a calculator. Let's see. 4 2 is 6. Plus 3 is 9. Plus 5 is 14. Plus 7 is 17. Plus 5 is 22. Plus 4 is 26. 27. 33. Oh, I'm short, man. I'm 34. I didn't make it to 40.
Close.
So,
Well, so
that means there's some more happiness in store for me, man.
there very much is, man. And I would challenge everyone out there, first and foremost, to give yourself a little grace, because obviously in order to grow, you need to know. So now we know where we're lacking, right? And now we can prioritize change accordingly. So, for you, very simply, I don't know if you're into golf or hiking or whatever, art, whatever hobbies. I recommend scheduling something in your calendar at least once a week for yourself, right?
That's interesting. Yeah,
And
that is
that could,
not something that's not something I've scheduled. That is interesting. That's not on the
yeah.
schedule. So,
Well, what your schedule gets done, right? So that's why it has to get in there, and it has to be treated with the same importance as a business meeting, as a podcast, as a date night, etc. Because it's a meeting with yourself. So this whole concept, though, it's so simple. It really is, but it really is transformative, Andy. And I've seen it in my own life so drastically. I've seen it in our highest of high performers in our it's our 25K a year men's mastermind program. And this is what we do. We track ourselves in these 10 areas of life, and then we meet 5 times a year for these events where we do awesome stuff. But just being consciously aware that these 10 different areas has like blown up other people's businesses in such a great way, because when you give to yourself in the, let's say for a passion, a hobby, you go to do an art class, you give yourself, your brain, that space to just settle. And we're constantly going, but you'd be surprised what amazing ideas you come up with on a walk, without your headphones, and stuff like that. So that's why this stuff is very important when it comes to investing in your business, investing in your growth. It's not just, woo-woo theory, but it really is to live this holistic, harmonious life. Our whole definition of happy hustling is the systematic harmonization of ambition and well-being. So again, harmonizing ambition, meaning crushing it personally and professionally, but also well-being, meaning you're taking care of yourself, right? So that's where it's all about.
What I got from this exercise, and it's just an incredible reminder that needs to happen all the time. When I was a kid, talking maybe 14, 15, and I didn't read a lot as a kid. I wasn't a good student, but I did wound up with I think it was a book by Stephen Covey, and he talked about production capability. I didn't really understand it as I was young. It's what you're capable of producing, and if we don't maintain our cars, we don't maintain our homes, we don't maintain the machinery. If you run those RPMs all the time, and you don't turn it off or maintain and kind of oil and lube things up, you can burn out. And you talked about that in the subtitle of your book, avoiding the burnout, and achieving a balance that's blissful, a blissful balance. So I appreciate the free help. I should have laid down on the couch when I did that. But it's great stuff, and it's a little bit different podcast than we throw out, because often I'm talking to some business professor about why modern monetary theory is, a bad idea, and we're always intense with that. But I really enjoyed our time together, both when you were kind enough to have me as a guest, and also to return the favor and have you share what you learned with my listeners and the people that follow the Cashflow Academy podcast. Hope everyone had a chance to do the exercise, and that you kind of get that good feeling inside, like, okay, I can do better. And these things are, the good news is all of those things you listed are actually pretty simple to do. We're not talking about calculus here. So good stuff.
Yeah, exactly, man. Well, thank you again for having me. Honored to be here. And if you missed the assessment or a couple pieces of it, we do have it free on our website too. It's just
let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also, I've got another one here in my notes, Cary Jack, and that's Cary, CaryJack.com, and also Happy Hustler, the book on Amazon, the Happy Hustle version 2.0, 10 alignments to avoid burnout and achieve blissful balance. Cary, good to see you again, man. Great
Awesome
stuff. I will close with something that I believe I know. I'm always scared when I say I know things, because that's always a perception. But I'll tell you what I think I know. I think if a person aligns themselves and takes this little test, so to speak, that I went through today, I think it turns into more cash flow. And so if you want more in your life, balance it out and engage in that personal development. Understand that every dollar you make will come from another person. So the ability to serve and be creative and give value and be efficient, all those things that go along with investing, entrepreneurship, happen through personal development. Thanks for being on. Final thoughts. I'll give you the last word to people either thinking about hopping into entrepreneurship or those that are in it and feeling some heat. What's your final words of wisdom, Cary?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say there is a way to put the happy in your everyday hustle. You don't have to sacrifice your soul while growing your bankroll. I know that rhymed, I didn't plan on it, but but it is true. There's a way, and we talk about it in the Happy Hustle. So if you're curious, reach out. I'm happy to support any of the listeners however I possibly can. I've gotten so much from you, Andy, and your podcast, and just I'd love to give back. So reach out. You could follow us on Instagram at Cary Jack, or pick up a copy of the book. But we give away a lot of free stuff. I'm even willing to hop on people on a call with people, typically if they actually get the book and they send me a DM on their biggest takeaway on Instagram. I'll give them a 20-minute free call where I'll just pour into them and how I can help them happy hustle a life they love. So no alternative agenda or anything like that. It's just, I know how valuable time is. It's our most precious commodity. So if I can give some of that to someone who actually invested to read the book and who wants to be a happy hustler, because entrepreneurship will get you if you're not intentional. And I don't want people to experience the burnout and the pain from it that I've experienced. And so I know there's a better way. And if I can help you find it or create it, I'm here for you. So thank you again, man, for having me.
You've been listening to Cashflow Academy podcast. I appreciate Cary coming on, and I would just tell you, I understand the stoicism in life, being grateful for what you have and cups half full and stoicism. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of happiness to be found if you're hustling. And if you're working and you're trying, and even if you're failing, and even if you score a 34, it's still fun to be in it and to be in the game and in the fight and throwing punches. So get out there and hustle and find the happiness in what you're doing and the joy in the journey. It's not all about results. We all want good results, but boy, if you can learn to enjoy process as well, that's what the hustle is. That's the process. So you have the ups, downs, you get the black eye, get kicked in the teeth, I mean, there's days where it stretches you, man. But if you can come out and survive on the other side, you're in good shape. We've been speaking with Cary Jack, CaryJack.com. His book is The Happy Hustle Version 2.0, 10 alignments to avoid burnout and achieve blissful balance. Cary, hang on a bit so I can properly thank you after we close the show. You've been listening and watching the Cashflow Academy podcast. We'll see you next time.